Okay, welcome everyone to the April 10th, 2023 special meeting of the Budget and Oversight of Public Elections Committee of the San Francisco Elections Commission. I am the chair, Chris Jordanek. The time is now 6:06 p.m. and I call the meeting to order. This meeting is being held in person at City Hall, room 408, 1 Dr. Carlton B. Goodlett Place, San Francisco, California. Members of the public may attend the meeting to observe and provide public comment, either at the physical meeting location listed above or via the online WebEx platform. In addition to participating in real time, interested persons are encouraged to participate in this meeting by submitting public comment in writing by noon of the day of the meeting to chris.jordanek, JERDONEK, at sfgov.org. It will be shared with the committee members. After this meeting has been concluded, it will be included as part of the official meeting file. Public comment will be available on each item on this agenda. Each member of the public will be allowed 3 minutes to speak. Opportunities to speak during the public comment period are available via phone call by calling 1-415-655-0001. Again, the phone number is 1-415-655-0001. The access code is 2489-535-5697, followed by pound. Again, that's 2489-535-5697, followed by the pound sign. After pressing pound, press pound again to join as an attendee. You will hear a beep when you are connected to the meeting. You'll be automatically muted and in listening mode only. When your item of interest comes up, dial *3 to raise your hand to be added to the public comment line. You will then hear you have raised your hand to ask a question. Please wait until the host calls on you. The line will be silent as you wait your turn to speak. Ensure you are in a quiet location. Before you speak, mute the sound of any equipment around you, including television, radio, or computer. It is especially important that you mute your computer if you are watching via the web link to prevent feedback and echo when you speak. When the system message says your line has been unmuted, it is your turn to speak. You are encouraged to state your name clearly. As soon as you begin speaking, you'll have 3 minutes to provide your public comment. You will hear a bell go off when you have 30 seconds remaining. If you change your mind and withdraw yourself from the public comment line, press *3 again. You will hear the system say, you have lowered your hand. When a phone is not available, you can use your computer web browser. Make sure the participant's side panel is showing by clicking on the participant's icon. Make sure the participants panel is expanded in the side panel by pressing the small arrow indicator in the panel. You should see a list of panelists followed by a list of attendees. At the bottom of the list of attendees is a small button or icon that looks like a hand. Press the hand icon to raise your hand. You will be unmuted when it is time for you to comment. When you are done with your comment, click the hand icon again to lower your hand. Once your 3 minutes have expired, you'll be thanked and then muted. You'll hear your line has been muted. Public comment instructions also appear on the last page of the agenda. Okay, I will next proceed to the committee roll call. Commissioner Hayden Crowley.
Here.
Commissioner Lavolsi.
Here.
And I, Chair Jordanek, am here. Okay, next, we're going to proceed to the statement of the land acknowledgement. Would Commissioner Lavolsi, would you like to say the land acknowledgement? I'll give you a moment to.
Sorry. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The San Francisco Elections Commission acknowledges that we are on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone, who are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. As the indigenous stewards of this land and in accordance with their traditions, the Ramaytush Ohlone have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as caretakers of this place, as well as for all peoples who reside in their traditional territory. As guests, we recognize that we benefit from living and working on their traditional homeland. We wish to pay our respect by acknowledging the ancestors and relatives of the Ramaytush community and affirming their sovereign rights as First Peoples.
Okay, thank you. And I would also like to note that as chair, I have excused Director Arntz from attending today's meeting, and which is allowed by our bylaws, and it's primarily because none of the agenda items in today's meeting directly involve the department. Okay, so now we will move on to item number 2, general public comment. Public comment on any issue within BOPEC's general jurisdiction that is not covered by another item on this agenda. Okay, so I don't see any members of the public in the room, nor online. So we will then move on to item number 3, Elections Commission website. Discussion and possible action regarding the Elections Commission's website, including possible changes and additions, as well as the process for updating the website and deciding on website content. Okay, so for this item, I'm first going to, we do have an invited speaker today, so I'm just going to allow her to join the meeting online.
Okay.
And then I will just make a few introductory comments. It's, this is Amy Martin. She's the project manager for,
Okay.
yeah, she's spoken with us before.
She spoke with us a while ago. Well,
Hi, Amy.
Hello. How's everyone?
Doing well.
Great.
Yeah, so I'm just going to say a few things before we move it over to you. But first, I just want to review the packet items we have for this agenda item. We have a document that President Stone put together of some feedback and suggestions on the website. And then there's also a document I put together that describes some of the different website elements that we can have on our homepage.
mhm.
And then there's also attached to the last agenda item of today's meeting, there's an email from President Stone that kind of talks about the overall goals for our committee. And there's a little section in there that talks about the website as well. So for today's agenda item, I thought we could, number 1, learn some information about the website, including some of the possibilities we have, which Amy will be a big help with. And then we can discuss and brainstorm some ideas. And then we can, after that, perhaps adopt some recommendations of possible changes, and also discuss about the process we'll use as a commission. So yeah, so I'd like to welcome our guest, Amy Martin, who's a project manager with Digital Services, and she's spoken to the full commission before when we first switched over our website. So Amy, thank you very much for being available to speak with us today. And so I'll turn it over to you.
Great. And thanks so much for having me come in. Glad I can make time for everybody here. I'm always happy to come in and answer questions for this committee on your website. I know it's a really recent change and you're still getting to know the new platform. So anytime I can answer questions in this forum or one-on-one, I'm happy to do that. Let's see. I think Vice President Jordanek was interested in me talking a little bit about the site as a service-oriented website. And I can start with that just to talk about how sf.gov is built overall and the kind of the structure of it. And I think I might start out by making a bit of a comparison to another government website that launched last year. If all of you are familiar with the program through which people could get COVID tests at home for free, that was a government program it was a partnership between a few different agencies. I know the U.S. Postal Service was a big part of it. Let me see if I can share. I'm not sure if I'm able to share on WebEx. Let me see.
I think you should be able to.
I think I just have to turn it on.
I'll just move over there.
Nope, I am not able to change that permission setting. I can share a link if Chris, if you would be able to share. Let's see. Am I able to share that?
Share her screen.
Amy, do you know if that's
What's
something
that?
on your end or?
It's on my end, I think. I'm not getting permissions to share my screen. But
Okay, so
that's
would you
okay.
like me to share some slides for you then? Or,
Yeah, I could do that. I was going to share just the website first for covid.gov/tests. It's we didn't, we had nothing to do with the site, obviously, but it's an example of a service-centered site in government. And I wanted to talk about some of the differences between this and a more traditional government website, because it's representative of what we're doing with sf.gov. I don't know if I can send a link, but if you could pull up that website and just show it. It's a nice example because it gets at some of the kind of primary differences between those. But I can also just talk briefly about the movement in government towards service-centered work in websites. We are used to creating websites as people who work in government that are full of information about our departments and really make everything very transparent, very visible to people who are searching for things. But some of the research that's been done on why people use government websites indicates that most of the time when people come to a government website, they're actually looking for a service that they can get through the municipality that they're working with or through the federal government. In our case, it's through the city and county of San Francisco. And so when we built sf.gov, we prioritized putting the services that people can get through the city and county front and center on as many of the landing pages as we could within the site. So that includes the overall landing page for sf.gov and then also all of the what we call agency pages within the site. So that's landing pages for departments, public bodies, commissions, all the kind of sub landing pages that people might come to if they're engaging with a department or a committee. The difference there is that we are not asking people basically when they use our site to learn about the structure of San Francisco city and county government before they navigate through the site. And we're not asking people to learn how to use our website to be able to use it. And to us, the way that translates to how the website works, how the homepage works, is that we make the navigation menu for the site very, very minimal. So if you've noticed, if you look at sf.gov, the navigation menu at the top of any page is just services and departments. And that's all that you see at the top of any page is a navigation menu. There is a picker above that for languages, and it's in the original language for Spanish, Chinese, and Filipino. So if people need to use a language that's not English, those 3 threshold languages are available too. So I know that in Commissioner Stone's notes, I saw it brought up that there is not a specific header navigation menu on the landing page. And that often comes up as a concern when people move to sf.gov. And I wanted to talk about why that is and why the site is set up that way. And it's just because we wanted to build the site in a way that people don't have to actually learn how to navigate through a landing page structure and through a navigation menu to find what they're looking for. So the services are right at the top. We make the services as easy to find as we can. In the case of a commission, a public body, the key service that you provide is the transparency into your meetings, into the process, and how you govern and oversee departments in the city and county of San Francisco. And so your meetings are always very, very close to the top of your agency page. I did show when I met with Commissioner Jordanic last week, I showed him some other ways to elevate content toward the top of your page. And we can look at a couple of those too. So there are some ways to make content more visible and findable as you look at the structure of an agency page. Another thing that we acknowledge about sf.gov is that now that our departments, as they move on to sf.gov, they're really gaining an advantage in search engine optimization because they'll be using a .gov platform from now on. .gov search results, that sf.gov, those are prioritized above other search results when it comes to search engines like Google. And so the results get bumped above other results. So if, for example, I am in San Francisco geographically and I search for elections, once Department of Elections is on sf.gov, it's going to be the first thing that comes up, is going to be their site. Elections Commission is going to be very close to the top too. But it's going, both of those pages are going to appear before any of the content out there that might be on like a .org or a .com website, just because of that .gov address. So we really like to help people take full advantage of that kind of search engine dominance. And we acknowledge that a lot of people are coming to pages on sf.gov directly from Google. And a lot of people are coming to not agency pages, not a landing page directly from Google. So somebody could come, for example, directly to the meeting page for this exact meeting, straight from Google, just by Googling the name of this committee and the date. They could find that meeting pretty easily in Google, and they could come straight here, and they might bypass your landing page for Elections Commission altogether. They might never see the Elections Commission agency page. So the way that we've built the pages is to try to make them as complete in serving a user goal as possible, so that the information can live on one page without being overwhelming to a user. That's kind of my overview of where we're going with making the site oriented toward users, centered on services. A service, the way we talk about it on sf.gov, is a transaction or an action that people take. So we might think of like, the example that I give is we might think of a computer lab as a service, but on sf.gov, the computer lab would be the location where you get services like using a computer, using the internet, printing, things like that. Any questions so far?
No.
Or anything else people want me to talk about?
Well, one question I have on the services aspect, would like speaking with a commissioner be a service, or if members of the public wanted to reach out to individuals? Or what do you think? Or
It's not a bad idea. Yeah, we've had actually, somebody wrote a page for another commission that was speak at a public meeting, and I forget what page type it was. I personally think that could be a service page, learning how to speak at a public meeting. That is something that you could get from the city. Let me see if I can find that page quickly. But yeah, we have another committee, the Shelter Monitoring Committee of San Francisco. They have a service which is make a complaint about a shelter in San Francisco. So that's a service that's on their page. There are a lot of committees and commissions that don't offer a lot of services because the service that you provide is the meetings and the transparency into those meetings. But yeah, there are some committees that have services, and I would encourage thinking about the ways that you offer services to the public. So if somebody wanted to like have a conversation with a commissioner, we could talk about that as a service. That's possible. You do have contact information on your page at the bottom of the page. But if you wanted to do something specific, like maybe set up a meeting with a commissioner or talk about an issue that concerns you, I could see that being something that we might set up a transaction around.
I see. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Hayden Crowley?
I have an issue with that. I'm not sure that's
Mhm.
appropriate. I think that if someone has an issue, they need to come before the commission. They don't one-off us.
Right.
Yeah, that's good feedback.
And also I will add, I'm very familiar with your department. I have worked with you before, and I worked with Carrie Bishop back when she was in digital services. And I totally buy into the whole concept. I really like it. I think it's excellent. I had to use it the other day on a completely different subject matter, and I'm very impressed by it. I guess
great.
I would challenge us to look about what type of services do we provide to the public? I think that's the challenge. But we provide oversight, but we're not looking for feedback from people on operations on the elections. That goes to the Department of Elections.
I have.
Commissioner Losey?
Thank you. I think services that might be interesting, and please, other commissioners chime in, is, how you conduct yourself at meetings and how you present material at meetings might be something that would be important for services for. So if people want to come and present during our meetings and talk about certain things, some kind of instructions on how to do that. Because I don't, as to your point, I don't see what other services would be applicable. And they can contact us via email. And I wouldn't want to have people coming to have a meeting with me and, it's not appropriate. But I think explaining how to come to the meeting, how to present, if people want to present, would be, I think, very useful and how
So
to get on the
the
agenda.
question that I have is, if you were to do something like that, wouldn't it be somewhat generic for all commissions? Or do we do something that's unique to us?
Good question.
I think that would actually be wonderful to have a page that's kind of generic for all commissions, because you're absolutely right. That is the way people think about it. We talked about it kind of last year as a need for commissions and committees in general, making the processes easier to use for people. I live in Oakland, and I was part of Oakland city government for a long time before I came to San Francisco. And I remember learning the process of being able to speak at Oakland City Council meetings, and like the little things that you have to do correctly to even get your name on the roster. And it's so challenging. I think that's a really good thought. I was trying to put in the Q&A, I don't know if it's disabled, trying to send a message of the Office of Civic Engagement and Immigrant Affairs, OSEA, has a transaction page for making public comment during a commission hearing and during a virtual meeting. And it would be a nice one. You could duplicate it, but we could also talk about just making it a shareable page that doesn't only apply to a specific commission's meetings.
Yeah, it could go on every commission or when there's public meetings. I think though, if the Department of Digital Services is looking for something generic, you might also want to start with the clerk at the Board of Supervisors or protocol. Now, obviously, their protocol is probably a little bit more. I'm searching for the word. It's after 6, so I'm very tired. It's a little bit more complex, say, than maybe our commission, but I don't think it should be incumbent upon this commission to come up with rules. It's to come from digital services, working with sort of the umbrella groups the mayor's office, which does most of the appointments to the commissions as well. So there are secretaries of protocol in the mayor's office. And you could start with the gal that, Tyra Fennell, who's in charge of the appointments for the mayor to the commissions. And then as well as Angela Cavallo at the Board of Supervisors. In terms, and I think that's where it needs to go. And then I think then we as a commission and other commissions should adopt that to include at least a link to that on our pages.
I
Go ahead, Commissioner Wilsey.
I have one concern about a generic page. I think it's important for people to be able to navigate and come to our site and find exactly what they want. My concern with a generic page is that people may put their request in with the incorrect commission, because people tend to be very focused. And I know I can speak from the eye that when I'm looking for something and I want to go, that's the only concern I have with a generic page, as opposed to going to our site, finding what I need to do and what I need to do to get on the agenda there, as opposed to a generic page, which could lead people to putting things in the wrong commission.
So what about having a set of rules and then that are generic, if you will, but then then giving the commission the opportunity to add the specific things that are relevant to our commission, like contact the secretary and then make that part of our page.
Yes,
So
I think that would be helpful. We're not reinventing the wheel, but we have the specific aspects. Right. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I like that idea.
I think that's exactly the right track. And like you've said too, I think that it would be more on our department to work out the specifics of how those pages would work. And we would work with our public body representatives to make sure that it was a good format. It would be helpful, I think, for people like the clerk of the board, maybe to get the feedback that that you would find it useful to get help from them on the language or things like that. That might help us make some traction on
Getting them.
on working around that.
So
We also are interested in things like some of the templated language that gets reused a lot for different commissions, like silencing phones and things like that. It's written in very formal language, and that it can be very difficult for people to understand. And we encourage writing things on the site in plain language. And it would be easier if, if some of that language were rewritten and there was a kind of new boilerplate version sent out for use by committees that was just simpler. So that would be another change that eventually we'd like to see.
Mhm.
It'd be something that takes some persuasion over time.
you
Commissioner Hooten,
persuade me.
Commissioner Hooten-Crowley, were you going to say something?
Well, so Amy's asking for us to, I think, contact the Board of Supervisors and the mayor's office, because those are the two places that I would think that you would go to. I mean, this commission's kind of a unicorn in that it's comprised of representatives that have been appointed by different electeds. There's maybe only one or two other commissions like us. So you wouldn't want to put a lot of energy in contacting those electeds just because they don't have a lot of jurisdiction over all that kind of stuff. Where you do want to put your energy is the Board of Supervisors and the mayor's office. And so I don't know if there's a next step because I like to move things along. But if we want to agree to contact formally the mayor's office and the Board of Supervisors and just express our support for protocol that could go on the SF.gov website that could be adapted for each commission's use.
Okay. What are your thoughts?
Would it be okay for me to give that some thought into tomorrow and talk to our delivery director about it and think about how we might want to ask for it? I think it's a great idea. And we have kind of ongoing discussions with some of those teams already. So I wouldn't want to suggest anything that maybe like isn't exactly the approach that other people in digital services are taking. But I could get back to you with an idea for next steps too.
Sure, but
I like a path forward plan too.
does your department, are you under Carmen Chu?
Yes.
Okay, so
Mhm.
that would be the path. We wouldn't want to go
Mhm.
around that, and
Yeah.
you would be the one that would push that forward.
It sounds like there's interest from your commission on helping the public understand how to participate. Is that right? Yeah.
I think
Okay.
it's probably true of every commission. I mean,
Yeah.
you would be doing a great service.
Okay, so I think the way to proceed on this, Amy, would be, you can talk with your team and then maybe get back to me and just let me know what it is that would be helpful to you. And then I can just present that to the commission when we meet, just so everybody knows.
Sure.
Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, that sounds good. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's continue with the questions then. I have a couple things to suggest too, but did anyone else like to have any questions for?
No, I wanted to hear your suggestion.
Yeah, I just don't know what to do with I had a hard time following all these things these are pretty granular that Robin recommended. I don't know if it makes sense or it doesn't. I didn't have time to look.
Okay, so I thought what we could do is, President Stone prepared this document, and I thought what we could do is just have Amy kind of run through it and just provide any kind of reactions to some of the suggestions. Just because it's a relatively brief document.
Yeah, Chris, if I email you a link to the agency page, that diagram. Would you be able to share the screen on that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I'm
Give it a
going to send
shot.
that by email then. Okay. That's on its way. Okay. Wait, let me pull up that email. Let's see. From President Stone. I see the email from President Stone, and then there was the list of suggestions that she had, right?
Yeah, the list of suggestions is
Okay,
the
great.
one
Let me find it.
that- Let me just figure out how to share this here.
Okay. Okay, great. So I'm looking at that right now. And I did see that some of the first things that she talked about were section headers.
Just can you just hold on one second?
Sure, yeah.
Are you sharing that, Chris?
No, I'm setting that up right now. Okay, I may be having the same problem that you're having. I need to kind of reset the permissions, then I would have to quit and then rejoin. So I think would be easiest if we just do this verbally.
Sure, I can also, if you want to forward that link, it's publicly viewable. If you want to send it to the other commissioners, they could look at it too for the agency page documentation, and there's a diagram on it that we can talk about. It's helpful for thinking about what's possible to do on an agency page. As I'm looking at Commissioner Stone's suggestions, I saw that the first few things on her list were recommendations around headers and basically wanting drop-down menus and navigation. And that was why I wanted to talk at the beginning about header navigation and how and why we've decided to keep that really simple on sf.gov and basically stick to just services and departments on every page and then have that language picker. It is something we hear a lot from, especially from departments when they first move over, is why don't I have a navigation menu on my site? And the idea is that agency pages should be navigable by topic and people should be able to find what they're looking for on the agency page just by browsing. We also acknowledge that people are often not looking right at an agency page as they're going around, that a lot of people don't actually browse on city government websites, that they know exactly what they're looking for, and that by putting it front and center on your agency page, you're serving those people's needs best. But that other people who are looking for things like the About Us information will scroll down on that agency page and find it. But that said, like I said, I talked to Commissioner Juronic about some ways that you can make some of the other information more easily discoverable if you want to highlight it. There are some features, sections within the agency page that you can use to elevate content, make it higher up on the page, or even really visible. If you're, I don't know if people are looking at the agency page documentation now.
Amy, can I just,
Sure. Yeah.
So Commissioner Hayden Crowley doesn't have access.
On my phone.
And I have a laptop.
Yeah, so are you able to log into the link that I forwarded to you just now? Because I think there may be an issue where they might need to be logging into the.
I think I mean, so right now About Us is down at the bottom and Robin wants to move it up.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm able to-
Yeah, I know why you have
The
it
link
down
you
at the
just sent,
bottom.
yeah.
Okay, so it looks like at least Commissioner Levolsi and myself can. Do you want to look at? Yeah.
You can look at mine.
So-
absolutely.
So if you
I'm
just.
boycotting till we get our own Chromebooks.
Okay, in just one moment, then we'll all be able to look at the page that you're describing now. So
Great. Okay.
okay, you can go ahead now. Thank you.
Okay. And if you want to go to the bottom of that page, there's that diagram of an agency page with the numbered sections. I find that really useful for looking at what's possible on an agency page because it has all the different sections that you can use. The numbering demonstrates the order. You don't have to use all of those sections on an agency page, but they will always appear in the order that is written out on the page by the numbering. At this time, it's not possible to change the order of sections. It's something we're talking about for the future because we get that request a lot to be able to move things around on the page. But I guess, again, what I would say is when you think about like moving the About Us section higher on the page is that most people are going to be looking for your services, which in your case would be the meetings and the transparency you provided to those. So putting it at the top of the page makes it most directly connectable to your users. And that's why it goes toward the top. Some of the things that you could add to the top of your page if you wanted to really highlight something special that's going on are a spotlight. You can use that with or without a photo, and that's a great way to direct attention. Like if you do a big report on something that you release, some people use it for like an annual report or just some like a really splashy campaign that's going on. Anything that's really exciting and you want to get people's attention on it, that's a great use for a spotlight. Some people just kind of use it as a header for their agency page, a place to put a great photo, and they link it to something that is important to them or that people look for really often. And then those 3 quick links right beneath that, that's also a place where you can put things that maybe people look for frequently. I was recommending it to Commissioner Jordanek as a place to put a link to the archived meetings page, because I know it sounds like your members are doing a lot of going back and forth between the archives and the existing site. And it could make it a little easier and quicker if people know you can get it right from that front page. Or if you have people who are frequently asking you how to get to the archived meetings since you just moved over and there's still probably a lot of activity around fairly recent meetings that are archived, you could add it to the quick links. You could even add it temporarily and then move it out of the quick links later if people stop asking for it so much as they get more in the past. And then going further down the page, some of these other things must be here. Obviously, your meetings, you want those to appear. You can add in the meetings for your subcommittees or not. And I think Commissioner Jordanek, you found that when you asked about it in Teams recently, there's a way to opt into having all of the meetings for your subcommittees show on your agency page or to not have those. Either way is possible. Then your services section, and that's where if you had any transaction pages, those would display. And that would be if we did make a generic page for speak at a public meeting, or if you wanted to make a page for something like meet with a commissioner, which it sounds like you won't want to make that, but if you did, then that's where that would appear. If you wanted to do news feed, press releases, announcements, anything like that, you can have that below.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Oh,
Just
yeah, I'm hearing question. Yeah.
Yeah, so for the section 7 where you have services, if we were to put,
Yes.
I mean, to me, it would make sense to have it right
Mhm.
below meetings, how
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
decorum, all those things at meetings. It would be
Mhm.
perfect to have it there.
Mhm. Have you looked at the sf.gov site for the Civil Service Commission? Because they have done a lot of the kind of thing that you're talking about.
Oh,
There are pages, and I would share my
okay.
screen if I could.
So you
But
said this Civil Service
Civil
Commission?
Service Commission, they
Okay.
have made pages about, because it's such a critical part of an employee's journey if they're speaking before the Civil Service Commission, they do have pages about like what to bring to a hearing, what to wear to a hearing, what to do before your hearing to prepare, things like that. So yeah, that could be some models for how you might work on that kind of thing. I will say those might not be services. I think a service would be more like a service I think of more as getting something. Um, and those pages might be more informational pages about, yeah, like how to attend a meeting, what to do. But certainly I could see like signing up to speak at a meeting or speak at a meeting itself would be a service because you're getting something that you want to do, you're accomplishing a goal.
Mhm.
That would be a service for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But Civil Service Commission would be a great place to look for that examples of that kind of page.
So Amy, you're saying one of the first recommendation that Robin has is she wants to move up the About Us. And I understand why. You've explained very well why that isn't the case. And so that's like, not only that, it can't be moved. So it's number 12.
Yeah, at this point, just like as far as what the site can and can't do, we can't move it. It's not out of the question for the future, because like I said, we get that feedback a lot. So it's something that our engineers are sort of weighing right now as we think about some improvements to the site. That said, we might want to look at the things that are listed here and think about where they actually fall in terms of your importance to your commission. And if they do need to be more findable on your site, then we should work on how they could be more findable, making them structured in a way that's easier for people to get to them.
Yeah, and this is so common. I
Yeah.
know with that before.
I mean, it's About Us, is that just our bios and all that
It's
information?
who's on the commission, and that's fine, but
But that's usually not why people are
Right,
going to the
exactly.
site, because people who are going to the site are people who are very much engaged and probably already know who we are.
It's also easy to find, you know, if you can't find something like an About Us, don't you always go scroll at the bottom?
I
Yeah,
keep scrolling until I find it, or if there are
Yeah.
navigation tabs. Look at
yeah,
the
I always look
navigation
at the
tabs.
bottom,
Yeah,
but we're not gonna change that. So I don't even wanna discuss it because we
okay,
can't change
we
it.
can't change it.
So the next thing is meetings, drop down upcoming past. What does she mean? Does she want to include so where we're meeting on number 6, Amy? Meetings, Robin's got bullet points for upcoming and past.
Yeah. I get the impression that she's asking for a header menu with drop downs where you can pull out any of those options.
Okay.
But but we can't change the structure. But
Right.
no, question, you're looking at that right now. Where you can, I mean, I love the way that this is set up.
It's
I really
so
do. It's
easy
so
to
easy.
navigate.
Right.
So the
That's
question
great.
that I have is, if I wanted to look at a past meeting, where is it on this? Because
Well, this is BOPEC.
right, so let's go to, oh, well,
Yeah, this is just the BOPEC
Mhm.
section.
so are there past meetings in there? Well, you've got to call in and make a public comment
Yeah.
before the meeting, so that's in there. That's already in there.
But this is about a call-in.
Okay.
Let's call in.
But so where do past meetings live, Chris?
Well, you'd want to navigate to the homepage. I think you have to click Elections Commission towards the top. Do you see that?
Yeah, within the meetings section, there's a little introductory information at the top, and then there's upcoming meetings and then past meetings.
Oh, of course.
Click it one more time.
And right there. Sorry, thanks.
So let's go and take a quick look. Upcoming meetings, go,
Mhm.
okay, and then, so what is, Robin, what's the issue here?
I think, so, I mean, my reading, I think all really she was suggesting exploring was having like pull down menus, kind of like we had on the old site. That's I think that's what she was referring to, the drop down.
As opposed to, because
Yeah.
we have past meeting, Elections Commission, regular meeting.
And see past meetings. So
And
you get
past
what- it's
meeting.
the design.
So instead of having a click box, she wants a drop down.
I
Yeah,
think so.
it's something we get asked for a lot.
Okay.
So yeah, that's how I'm reading that.
Well, I mean, I just clicked on it. I'm on the homepage and I just clicked on past meetings, see past meetings, clicked on that. And it's very easy to,
I think it's excellent.
yeah, it's very, you know, I think it's, like you said earlier, it's important, select month, March
Select year.
and year. It's pretty easy.
It's a design. We can't change the design.
But also,
Yeah.
I think it's important to make this as easy as possible for people to navigate. For people, there may be people in the community who are interested in getting involved, but who may not have the most up-to-date computer skills. So I think it needs to be as simple as possible. Drop-down menus could hamper someone who doesn't have the best computer skills.
Yeah, and a lot of people are limited to using phones for internet access too.
Right,
And this design works really well on phones.
right.
That said, I completely understand the request, and it is how the old site worked. And so it's totally natural for me to hear that request from somebody to want to have it set up on the new site the same way. So I totally understand that. And I know Commissioner Jordanek, as I told you, I'm happy to talk to Commissioner Stone about it too in person.
Do you have any thoughts, Commissioner John?
Well, on this particular point about the drop downs,
Yeah.
well, I think, as Amy said, I think this is sort of like built into the design of the site, so we kind of have to respect what they provided.
Okay.
And I think it's just kind of a new way of
Very clear.
a new navigation style, which I think is fine. It's nice, as you said. Okay, so then the next point, there's one about the contact us.
Yeah, that actually exists on here now. There's email at the bottom. It goes to elections.commission@sfgov.org. Is that the right email address?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And that actually is hyperlinked. So if someone is using it on a phone, it'll open their email client if they click on it. Probably if I click on it on my computer too. I never like to do that.
Yes. Yep, there it is.
Yeah, it's probably just further down the page, I think, than she's envisioning.
No, well, that just gave us we just clicked on contact us at the bottom of the committee page, and it took us to
That's past
emergencies.
meetings, maybe.
Of past meetings. Just took us to emergencies. It didn't take us
Oh,
to.
interesting.
So I
Let me
think the
look at
link
that.
is
contact us. Oh, I see. Yeah, that's in the very, very footer of the site itself. And that goes to 311, I believe.
Okay, yeah, it
for
did.
emergencies.
Okay.
But yeah, you're right that meeting list view page does not show the contact information for the department. I can make a note of that and pass on that feedback.
who checks that email box?
Elections Commission at sfgov.org.
Yeah.
Oh, our email? Normally it's the commission secretary. So I'm hoping that President Stone is checking it. Yeah.
She's checking it. Okay.
All right, so then the next suggestion is around, and this is something we've discussed in the past, having demographic information about the commissioners, self-identified, as well as like surfacing some of the things like the pronouns, titles, appointing authorities. And Amy,
Yes.
That looks like right now.
were there did you have things to say about that? Were there ways to surface some of that information?
Yeah, I actually I already ticketed one point on here with our team. The pronouns and making those visible on the agency page. I think that's very actionable. Pronouns, the pronoun module that's built into the profile page is pretty new to sf.gov. I think it's been there for just a couple months. And I think there was talk even when they made it live of whether or not they would have the pronouns display on the agency page when that view was pulled in. And I think they decided not to for space considerations, but I can give them the feedback that someone has asked for it. I think it's a good idea. And so I ticketed that. I did get a partial response that there's ongoing work that's internal to our content management system that's going to be going on over the next probably couple of months. And it's probably going to be a little while before they make any improvements like that on the site. Even though it's something that feels very small, there's kind of a big back end project on the site that's coming up. That's going to be, it's going to really affect the way the site is organized on the front, and it affects the way our engineers work on the site. And so it's, I don't know, without having to explain too much of what's going on behind the scenes, it'll make it difficult for people to make that kind of small structural change. And so they're trying to limit it to things that are like emergencies. So I did raise it. If it becomes a really critical issue, I can wave a flag and raise it higher.
Amy, I'm sorry, are you talking specifically about the pronouns?
Yes.
They're on there.
It's
They're on there.
when you
On
click.
the agency page or on the
Yeah, it's on our individuals.
yes, they're on your individual pages. Yeah. It sounded like Commissioner Stone wanted them to show on the agency page.
Well, but how, okay, we'll go back. Also, my years, I was reappointed by the mayor in 2023 through 2028, so that needs to be updated.
Yeah, we can fix that for sure.
Just
Yeah.
because otherwise I'd be off.
Yeah.
Okay, question, so you're, oh, I see. So you want to put it under each person on the agency page?
Yeah, I think the suggestion there was to make some of that basic information just available on the
Just
main page.
visibly as soon as you
Yeah.
get to the page as opposed to clicking.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely see the benefit of that because it's one less step people have to do if that's all they're looking for.
Right. And our designers, when they look at it, will weigh that benefit against the fact that it's going to mean that there's more on the page, and every item of information you add to a page starts kind of competing for a user's attention. It also, when you add more to the page, it gets a little bit harder to use on mobile. So they will look at that very carefully when they get to consider it. And that's basically how they'll make the decision, is like, does the benefit of having this pronoun appear on an agency page outweigh the potential drawback for other users who might have a harder time with the display if there's more information? I do think that having the other information there is likely going to be too much for the display. I'm happy to ticket it for our engineers to look at anyway.
Actually,
My
Amy,
suspicion is that's going to be the response, but yeah. Mhm.
I actually, now that I'm looking at it, it's much cleaner. It's a much cleaner look. It's easy to find. I did the previous website. I found it kind of hard to find that. And when you looked at it on the phone, it looked completely.
I love.
I mean,
clean
this
websites.
is, yeah, this is quite clean and you just click,
Yeah.
and it's all there.
Yeah.
And then on your phone, you can navigate
Yeah.
that fairly
Mhm.
easy. So
Yeah.
and I think most people understand that you would have to click on those because they're
Mhm.
underlined.
Well, and
You
here's the
know?
thing, if they want to get in touch with Cynthia.
It's right
Mhm.
there.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, all the
Mhm.
information is there.
yeah,
Her name, who she's appointed by,
yeah.
her duration, email. Yeah,
Mhm.
so I understand Robin's impetus to want to make that on the agency page, but I think it would just make it look a little, for lack of a better word, sloppy. As
Cluttered,
opposed to this,
cluttered.
thank you, cluttered is the word, much more cluttered than it is like this.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, we
I
talk
think
about
most
how
people-
information has a cost for users, and the more information is on a page, the more information users are having to interpret as they're looking over the page and looking for the information they want. So we
Right.
try to limit it to just what's essential. But yeah, I think the pronouns are worth considering, because it's relatively short, and
Okay.
it's worth looking at. And I can flag the other information too and see what they decide.
Okay, we've got two other items on this agenda besides this, so let's get through this homepage structure.
Yes, so, okay, and then the other last point that President Stone said was removing the events section, and that's already been taken care of. I think that was a bug, so.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, so, yeah, since we do have other things to discuss today, were there any other sort of questions you wanted to ask Amy while she's here, and then we can kind of go back to.
Does this involve, Amy, this thing where she's going through the overall outline order of sections? Send
Okay.
out screenshots. I mean, what is she objecting to?
No, so that was a document that I put together. It's got my name at the top.
You.
So this document, all it is, this is basically the same elements that Amy went over
Mhm.
with like the different options we have, alert boxes and
Okay.
just for, as a document form.
It's great.
Yeah, I like the the
Really
new,
like all
yeah.
the work that you've done.
Great.
I really do. And, yeah, I think it's excellent.
Yeah.
Great. I'm glad to
Okay.
hear that.
Well, great. Thank you again, Amy, for being available. And
Sure, yeah.
we'll be in touch about, the stuff we talked about earlier regarding
Okay,
engaging with the public. So,
terrific. And feel free to reach out, any of you, if you have questions or follow up.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amy.
okay.
All right.
Thank you, Amy.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Have a good evening.
This you could do, well, this morning I could very easily like print out stuff and read it and look at it and put it on. I created a folder this morning.
Okay, so let's kind of resume our discussion.
I gave her money.
So there were a couple of things I thought we could do with the remaining time in this item. Number one is, I think we could talk about, are there any, recommendations we want to adopt or things, like sections we want to add to the website? And then secondly, I thought we could spend a little bit of time about talking about like what would be the process for changing the website? Like, is this something that we should, just delegate to the president? Or should we, do we want to have it so that whenever something's added to the website, the commission, needs to approve that? Or,
I think it could be I think can be delegated to the president, but the president needs to inform us when she makes a change.
Right. I would agree with that.
okay, so then,
Did you have any other thoughts on that?
well, I think the concern would be if it's something very, like if we want to have a website about, a policy area that could potentially have a lot of different documents. Maybe people have different opinions about that, and would you, that's really just kind of the,
Well, can we carve out exceptions? I mean, because here's the deal, you don't want to, we have to be able to function. And this is the issue with bureaucracy, is that every time you make one move, it's got to be a vote and nothing gets accomplished. So I would say you need to give the president latitude in which she also informs us what she's doing. But on big issues, if there's something that, like redistricting, we would have to approve something like that.
and,
What about
sure.
delegating that to you as the vice president? And then any, because I would assume she's got a lot on her plate and it's something that you're interested in doing. And then if there are any substantive changes, then we would be notified. I don't think we have to be notified as a commission on every single change to the website.
No, I mean.
But if we delegated that to you to kind of look at and think about, and then, I mean, couldn't you send, screenshots or is that too much?
Well, I guess I'm thinking more about like substantive things like like not just restyling things, but like maybe, additions of like collections of documents and things.
Oh, I
Like,
see.
because, and I'm also not, and we're gonna have rotating offices over the years and stuff, but, like if we say, oh, we want to have a page about open source voting or redistricting or racial equity, what is the process we're going to use to decide what documents are going to go on these different pages? Because that's a lot of decisions there. And yeah, do we want to like approve every individual document, or do we just say, oh, we're going to authorize so-and-so to maintain this page and they can use their judgment? And I don't have the answer, but this is just a question.
I see what you're asking. That's different.
So more about the substance of
The
pages.
substance.
Yeah.
I would also say that, first, to go one step further, a lot of the rote changes can be done by the secretary, and she should be changed, she should be trained, because you're turned out, and this is an issue.
Right.
Yeah, well, that goes without saying. Yeah. Yeah.
Goes with saying, but, I don't know that we can come up with a policy today. I do think it's on an as-needed basis in terms of how we decide. I mean, I think there has to be consensus when we're talking about policy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but for example, if we were okay with just the blanket policy will be, we always authorize the president to make the decisions, then that can be it, you know, but if the commission wanted more visibility into things that are getting posted, then it would need to be something a little bit.
What would be the rationale for us to, because I mean, I trust that people are going to put things on the website that are appropriate and that are within the scope of our work. So what would be the reason for us having to approve it?
Maybe I mean, hypothetically in the future, maybe if there's commissioners in the future that don't agree with certain things and they have opinions. I mean, I'm just sort of anticipating.
Okay.
Um,
But if it's a document that's put on the website within the scope of our work,
yeah.
then does it really matter if people don't agree with it?
Um,
Or am I just being too simplistic?
well, I mean, if it's a policy the commission agrees with, then I think, it should be fine, but,
Like, I mean, I don't want someone, I mean, it would be out of the scope to put your personal opinion about something.
Yeah, well, I don't.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess I would have to see the situation, but I don't know that you would go on any one commission website and there might be a policy, but I don't know that they would provide company documentation to back up their policy per se.
because I know one of the suggestions, and I think it was in President Stone's, her goal document, she, suggested having a website section on different strategic priorities, where we'd have a page on equity or open source voting and redistricting. And there, I think you would want to have different documents.
I guess it just depends on what they are, but I don't know.
I see.
And we don't have to decide this today, but it's just.
But it's something that we need to think about
Yeah.
and make a decision.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think that you can have a policy, but I would want to, you know what, I think that that's something you have to look into best practices and see what like other commissions do and what other bodies do. What does the Board of Supervisors do?
I don't know.
I think that we're not the Library of Congress.
Yeah, I know for agenda packets it's very easy because you just post the materials and it's not supporting a stance or anything.
Right,
But,
right, and we are apolitical. I think that that's something that you
Yeah.
need to check in with the DCA. Am I saying the letters correctly?
Oh, okay.
so,
Because any kind of research or whatever that we might put up, it could be flawed. You could, I mean, you just state your policy. I know what you're saying, Chris, but I think that's a slippery slope for a commission to do. But I do think you ought to check with the DCA. Start there.
And see if there are any, if somehow that's out of the scope of what we're supposed to do.
Yes.
Okay. That, it doesn't hurt to do that.
yeah, it certainly doesn't hurt. I mean, I like just my own personal opinion. I don't see a problem with, posting information about topics the commission is supportive of, but I do think there's a question of how do you decide what to post.
What to post and what not to
Yeah.
post.
And so, yeah, like I said, I don't think we have to decide all this stuff today, but it's worth, I do feel like we should, given that we've met, it would be nice if we can have some kind of come out of this meeting with some recommendations of things we want to add to our website. I know, like, do we want to, recommend that we add,
Commissioner Bile?
yeah, like self-identifying information about demographics and who we are.
So the bio would be, in addition to demographic information, other information about us, or?
Well, let's see what did Commissioner or President Stone write?
Oh,
Well, there's two aspects. One is the aggregated demographic information. Like when it comes to our appointing authorities, they might want to know, well, who is the commission made up of today?
Mhm.
And then there's also, I think that's more what I was thinking about rather than and maybe under your bio, if someone wants to say I'm from this community.
I think
Yeah.
on the bios, can I make a suggestion? I think we should have a word limit.
Word
yeah,
limit?
I was,
Okay, right.
oh, for sure. Yeah. Absolutely. No,
And
I
we should
agree.
ask Amy what she recommends.
Wins. Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely.
Okay.
There should definitely be a word limit.
Well, how do people feel about having demographic information about?
Totally fine with that. I think that's very important for the city and county of San Francisco, for people to look at this body and see whether they feel it's representative.
We
Or
can
not.
put up our photos. Most,
That's not always an indicator.
yeah, no, I know, but I'm just, I don't mean it in that context. I
Just in general.
Yeah,
got it.
most commissions do.
Most commissions do. Yeah, I think it does.
So what about if, in terms of demographic information, should we also have it, should it just be only aggregate, or should we also include that in the bios voluntarily? Or,
Well, it probably has, legally, it has to be voluntary. You can't make people.
Right.
Put their demographic information.
Do any commissions do it in aggregate?
I think there's a report from the Commission on the Status of Women where they come out with a report saying X number of,
Right, but I don't know of any commission site that provides an aggregate look at their composition.
yeah, so we would be maybe one of the first, I think.
Mhm.
I think that would be great, actually. In particular, because of who we are, because we have oversight over the Department of Elections, and that elections are so important. I think it would be really important to have that information.
Okay, so then maybe we could have a motion then that we move that we recommend that we have a page
Mhm.
which discusses our aggregate demographics. And then,
I'd second
A
that
page?
motion.
okay.
When it's
Okay.
just about the commission, can you have like, under about the commission?
Yeah, something like that. And we
I
could
mean,
work with it.
not a whole separate page, but like a couple of sentences.
Or section.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'd have to work with Amy to figure out,
Figure out how best to do that
yeah,
and not to get it too cluttered.
yeah.
That was definitely the word I was looking for.
Okay, so I made a motion and Commissioner Lavosi seconded it to have this demographic information little section.
Can we take a vote?
Well, let's take public comment here on this item. It's been okay, so opening it up to public comment on agenda item number
One. Or is it-
Number
3, Elections Commission website. Okay, I don't see any commenters with their hands raised. Okay, so I guess I'll take a roll call vote on this motion, or unless there's any further discussion. Okay, seeing none. Commissioner Hayden Crowley,
Yes.
Commissioner Lavosi,
Yes.
and I, Chair Giordanic, vote yes. Okay, are there any other motions we want to make today about either the content of the website or the process for anything? No?
I just think that there's some unanswered questions that we have to go back and ask Amy about, and then we can make a recommendation.
Right, right.
Mhm.
Okay.
Will you take that on?
Yeah, is it anything beyond what we've just, okay,
No.
sounds good. Well, great. So let's move on to the next item, agenda item number 4, approval of minutes of previous meetings. Discussion and possible action to approve minutes for the August 10th, 2022 and January 31st, 2023 BOPEC meetings. Okay, so on this item, I'll just tell you the draft minutes were prepared, but they were posted very late. So I don't think,
I saw
it's
them.
probably better that we don't vote on anything, I think today, just because people haven't had a chance to,
Right.
but they're done at least.
Okay. No, that's fine. Thank
Okay.
you.
So I'm going to take public comment on this item, agenda item number 4. Okay, seeing no members of the public with their hands raised. And if anyone has suggestions about the minutes, we can do that before the next BOPEC meeting.
Okay.
Okay, so let's move on to
Is it one person?
one person. Yeah.
It's Rob.
Just wanted to check what I was saying.
I'm sure it's Robin.
Okay, so agenda item number 5, 2023 Racial Equity Progress Report. Discussion and possible action regarding the Elections Commission's portion of the Department of Elections upcoming 2023 Racial Equity Progress Report. If the Commission would like to include an update on its progress with the Department's submission to the Office of Racial Equity, the Commission will need to submit its update to the Director of Elections by Thursday, May 4th, 2023. Okay, so for this item, basically we have one Commission meeting between now and May 4th. And the idea would be that we could maybe recommend something for the full commission to approve, which could then be, oh, okay,
The 19th.
right. So I'm just gonna first begin by just stating what the different packet documents are. So we have an email from President Stone who described the process for updating the report, and we can read that in a moment. And then there's the template, which is basically a collection of slides with some instructions. And then we also have a draft submission that President Stone was kind enough to put together that we can use as a starting point. And then she also provided a look back of all the different racial equity discussions we've had during 2022. I think it's like a 4 or 5 page document. And then there's also some email correspondence between a reporter with the San Francisco Examiner and President Stone and myself, where he was asking about, why we didn't make any progress in racial equity. So that's just for transparency around, and it has some information. So so for this item, I thought we could just basically, review what President Stone put together. But before we do that, does anyone have anything they'd like to say or ask or suggestions on how we should proceed? And let me pull up. So actually, let me read the instructions that President Stone put together. It's very short.
Yeah, I see it here.
Need to
Oh, no, that's
page through here.
How important is composition of the commission to this?
We don't have control over it.
I know we don't, but how important is it? Because, in my mind, that's the most important thing. If you don't have a commission, even though we have no power to appoint, we can say that it is of important significance to have a commission that represents the populations of the city. And if we were doing that, this commission probably would look a little different. And so if we say that, I don't see any problem with that. We have no power, but it's a recommendation.
Yeah. So I
Because you're never going to have racial equity if you don't have representation.
Right. I support that. I did have a suggestion around that topic. Would you mind if I just read the part about the instructions for?
Absolutely.
Okay. So for some reason, I can't find the paper version of this.
This one? Is it this?
No, it was a one-page email,
Oh, from Robin?
Oh, for
Yeah,
Robin? I
but
think I do have it.
but there were
Hold on.
2 emails, and I'm all,
One.
yeah. Well, let me just read. I have it on my computer, so let me just read from
Okay.
here. It says,
Absolutely.
so I am sharing the template city departments and commissions are asked to use for communicating equity-related progress and future priorities. So slides 1 through 8 walk through how to input the commission's information. And she says, importantly, the commission will need to develop 1 to 2 slides regarding last year's progress and an additional slide for future priorities. And then the commission will share these slides with the department to be integrated in with the department's suggestion. So then President Stone, she put this draft, starts out with Elections
Right.
Commission.
Right, I saw.
It's got 2 pages of past progress and then 1 page of
So department
future goals.
data.
So, and this is where we can fit into the comment you just made about composition of the commission.
Right, that could totally fit there, yeah.
So,
I have it up, what you're just looking. But,
are you able to find this,
hold on. I
Commissioner
think
Hayden Crowley? Could you?
I have it here. Did you want to look at it
I think I think actually I have it. That's what I'm pulling up.
with the instructions?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, she has it.
Okay, and do you also have this one, the draft version?
Mhm.
Sure. Okay.
I have it on my laptop.
Okay.
I don't have it.
Yeah, I think.
Commissioner Giordano, I have it.
Oh, great, great. Okay, so, I mean, unless people have any other suggestions on how to proceed, I was thinking we could basically review what she put together and then discuss if we want to make any changes to it. Okay. So I basically, I had 2 suggestions for what she put together. And one is, in terms of the past progress, I thought, would it be worth adding a point saying that we had sought to open up the competitive selection process to allow a diverse group of applicants for the director position?
Yep. I think
And
that-
that's something we tried for. It was definitely covered a lot in the media. It started a lot of conversations, but even though we were not, successful in
I don't even think we have to say that. I think we
Right.
can say that it was a decision to move forward and to open up the process for racial equity. And, that, I think that's all we have to say. I mean, I think everyone knows what happened.
Right.
But I definitely think that we should say that was the reason for it.
I guess I would add, because I voted against it, because I do think equity also includes your service and and which we haven't yet finished reviewing Director Arndt's. I think mentioning that was a 4-2 decision, because it wasn't a unanimous decision.
I think that's, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so then I think this would go under external because it's not about
Oh, I see. Yeah.
about internal to the commission. It's external.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Definitely.
So we could use, Commissioner Lewis, your language, and then we could include in parentheses, this was a 4-2 vote.
I think it needs to be parentheses in a 4-2.
Okay, and a 4-2,
Yeah.
yeah. Commissioner Lewis, would you like to draft the exact language for that? I mean, it doesn't have to be right now, but
What's the due date? Because I just need to put it on my calendar.
I think for the next commission meeting,
Which next week?
it's a week from Wednesday.
Okay. And
I think,
does it matter that I'm not going to be here?
oh, no, it doesn't.
I think that Cynthia probably has one form or another in all those talking points, has the language
Okay.
that she.
Yeah, if people have questions, that's my only concern. People have questions
yeah.
about it, I'm not going to be here.
Chris, do you want to present it?
Yeah, I could present that. Maybe, do you want to just
I
give
could
one
do it
crack
to you
at?
Friday.
Okay, sure.
Do you this Friday before noon. Let me put that on my calendar.
Okay. And then my other suggestion was in terms of the future goals, I thought we could I'm getting lost here in the papers. I thought, in line with your suggestion, I thought we could have, create a process to contact the appointing authority whenever there's a vacancy, to basically let them know about the current composition of the commission and encourage them to,
To think about racial equity.
yes.
Just want you to know I represent the seniors in this group.
That's an important constituency.
It is.
Absolutely.
Majority of the voters,
Mhm.
fortunately.
Okay, so, yeah, so those are just to kind of,
Mhm.
my suggestions, and then,
Did you want me to do that language as well, or just the language for?
yeah, if you could, I mean, if you'd like to,
Okay,
that would be helpful, yeah.
I'm just writing this down. Language for, I'm sorry, you just told me. Can you remind me?
To create a process to contact
Okay,
the appointing authority whenever a vacancy occurs, and to encourage them to, to let them know the demographics and encourage them to,
to consider racial equity.
consider racial equity. Right?
Well, racial,
Or-
gender, and age.
Y-
I mean, there's all kinds of different things that figure in.
Right, but this is specific to racial equity.
Isn't it diversity?
Yes,
Well,
and, I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I think,
I think it can encompass a lot of different things, and
certainly, I think a letter can say multiple things, but in the slides for the racial equity goals,
It's race.
maybe we'd want to focus on that.
I was, okay, it says specifically, because when I worked on this before, not with this group, but it was DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Right, but this is a very specific thing.
What is an
It's
equity
talking about
practice?
Racial equity. So
Let me see.
that's what we're trying to focus on.
I know, I'm looking to make sure about that, because well, I mean, DEI, BJ goals, diversity, equity, inclusion. I don't know what B.
Belonging,
Yeah,
justice.
yeah. I mean, what about LGBT?
Mm-hmm,
That's not racial,
mm-hmm,
that's gender.
mm-hmm. But this is actually asking about race, though.
Where is it?
So the racial equity action plan,
Okay, right, where it says racial equity action plan.
right?
Except that when you go through it, it's DEI, BJ.
Right, but I think in the city and county of San Francisco, we don't want to talk about race, but we need to talk about race.
Okay, I just think it's broader than that. Okay, if they do say racial equity plan over and over again, okay.
I think maybe that the I mean, I think maybe what the issue was there is that our agenda items were a little broader, but this particular report is focused on the racial equity. Yeah. Okay, so okay, so I had made a couple suggestions, and then Commissioner Levels, you're offering to put the language together, and then I think we're going to want to have a motion where we move to approve a version of these slides, but before we do that, are there any other edits to what President Stone had?
Well, I'm not sure about bullet number 2 on 2023 goals, establish a more equitable, open and competitive selection process for the Director of Elections position.
Mhm.
I don't know where we're going with that. Because
Where are you? I'm sorry.
I'm looking at 2023.
Oh, 2023 goals.
I don't know what
This is in the version that President Stone.
Oh.
yeah, I know it's what it's in response to. We're
Mhm.
5 years away from the next one, and I get where we're kind of going, but that seems, I don't know. I'm a little, I'm a little uncomfortable with it, that's all. I just think it's.
What
a
exactly
pretty-
are you uncomfortable with?
I
I'm looking.
I mean,
at that.
where are we going? I mean, what does it mean? How, I guess we won't know till we do it.
Bullet, which bullet? I'm sorry.
Number 2, establish.
Establish a
more
more
I mean, it's,
open competitive selection process for Director of Election position. I mean, can we not ask clarification?
Well, I mean, I think it's, I mean, I can tell you what I think it means. I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's,
Please do.
I mean, basically, we tried to do this process last fall where we had a selection process, and then we found we ran into some roadblocks. And I think what we learned from that process is that we didn't prepare in advance, because, one of the things that Supervisor Peskin said, oh, you needed to start this process years ago. So I think all this goal is basically, let's do the things in advance that we need to do so that the next time around, we can go forward with it.
Right. One of the things that Peskin also said was, informing other bodies about this. So I agree that it's 5 years out, but we can start looking at making sure that we have the steps that were suggested now, so that when we get there, if we have another situation where we want to make that vote and that change, we have everything in process and able to do it. I mean, it's just like with the redistricting. It's not coming up
right.
for some time, but we're setting everything up. So when we're there, we have everything that we need.
So I agree with it in concept. And and Chris knows that I think that we should be moving the review date of the director to July in order to facilitate all of that,
Oh,
from
okay.
January to July.
Okay.
I think the implication is that, I don't know, there's something about this. I think it needs to be, I mean, I'm quibbling over language, but
Is it just the wording of the item?
yeah,
No?
it's the
Okay.
wording. I mean,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it's not establishing, in other words, transparent would be a word I would use.
As opposed to
Open.
open.
Transparent because, that also communicates that we would be communicating with a broader group.
Mhm.
I don't think we were ever not going to be equitable, I guess, in terms, I guess what I don't like about it is implies that we wouldn't have been equitable. I think that we would have been. And
Oh, I see.
and
Got
I
it.
think
Got it. Establish a more equitable, meaning it wasn't equitable last time.
right.
Okay.
And I think the other part of it is that it also needs to be fair to the person in the position. Because we did not review him, and that was something I brought up at the very beginning of it, that he needed to be reviewed, and had we done that, and I have talked to Chris about this, I think that that would have put us in a much better position for, number one, achieving consensus, and number two, just, putting us on the right track.
Yes, and I also think a more equitable way of looking at this is that there's more clarity about our role, and that at the end of 5 years, it's not an automatic renewal. And that is something that should be clear, because we have it's our purview to decide to renew or open up the process and invite that person in the seat to
I guess I would.
join the process. But I think because of the length of time, I agree with you. And I think because there hadn't been an open process for how long?
20 years.
20 years.
Never
That's-
basically, yeah.
That's a long time. So I think it's easy, given that time frame, to make assumptions. So I think what could make it more equitable next time is to make it very clear in our language that it is up for opening.
Right.
It's not an automatic, because and I don't know if it was an assumption, but it appears that it was an assumption for everyone, not just the director. If that was his assumption, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think that there was an assumption that because there hadn't been an open process in 20 years, that we didn't have the purview to do it. So I think it would be more equitable to, clarity is a gift.
Right. Right. That's the thing.
So,
We need to be fair to, but I guess my point is.
so being clear now, so that the next 5 years, it's not a question, but not just to the director, which is, of course, yes, to the director, but also to the appointing agencies, everyone involved, that this is our purview. And so everyone needs to understand that the next time around, it's not necessarily going to be automatic.
So
And to me, that's equitable, because that's making it clear that at the onset of every 5 years, there's a possibility that the commission, whether it's us or other commissioners, may want to, for racial equity reasons, for a various number of reasons, want to open up this process.
So.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do. I would say establish I don't know if I want to say more, establishing a timely, transparent, and equitable selection process.
I like timely, transparent,
And
equitable process. I like that.
Yeah, and just remove the word more.
Yeah, but I would start
With timely,
transparent,
transparent,
and equitable process.
because the timeliness is important, and the transparency would be every 5 years it can open up if we wanted to.
And again, I guess it goes to the fact that we have this responsibility, we have this authority, but we also have a responsibility to whoever is in the position of the director of elections.
To know that.
Merit, but there's merit involved, and merit is part of equity. Someone who has been there, who's performed, and it's hard to evaluate that without a review, and we went forward without a review.
Well, I don't think it has to do with the review, because there's nothing that says that we have to have a review in order to open up a process. However, it makes sense
Exactly.
to do the review first. But I don't think we need to pigeonhole ourselves to having to have a review. I think it should be a best practice, but it doesn't, I don't think it has to be a requirement.
Well, not now, but if we establish a timely, transparent, and equitable process, we may decide that review is part of that.
Right. I agree. We're splitting hairs now.
Yeah. Okay,
And I just want to be fair to everybody.
Absolutely. But
Okay.
I think when I think of the timeliness, I'm thinking in terms of making it clear now that it is the purview of the Election Commission to open up the process, and to be equitable, that will be done in a manner that is respectful and judicious to the person in the position.
Yes. Okay. We're on the same page.
okay, so then so I understood, when you said timely, transparent, equitable,
And equitable process.
what about open and competitive selection?
I don't like, I just think timely, transparent, and equitable is enough.
But what's the rest of the sentence?
Oh, process for the director of elections position.
But
Well, we
you
have to
need,
have the competitive there because it's a competitive process. It's not, we're not selecting the person. We're opening it up to individuals to apply, and then we look at those individuals and decide.
Okay, you can add the fourth adjective. I believe in groups of three, so whatever.
Right, but we also have
But
to
I
say
really do
what-
believe in
what-
groups of three, so.
what it is. I like your groups of threes. And we have to make sure that it's clear that it is a competitive process. We're
Okay.
not, because I think the concern I have is if we say timely, transparent, equitable selection process for the director of
You
elections
could
position.
take out selection.
You could assume that we are selecting, and that's not what we're doing. We would be opening up the process through a competitive selection.
Well, how about take out the word selection?
well, without the word selection, it's not clear that you're referring to the hiring process. It's just,
Competitive.
No, you'd have to have selection.
Okay,
Yeah.
whatever you want to do.
That's
That's fine by me. I want to just keep moving.
okay, so,
Sorry.
okay, so then the wording is establish a more timely, transparent, and equitable competitive selection process for the director of elections.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
fine.
okay, great, good. Okay, and then anything else, either on the goals or
I think that's
on
a lot.
what's
I
that?
think Robin
I think
did a
that's a
lot of
lot.
work for us.
Yeah,
It's
no,
very
she,
nice of her.
yeah, I'm very thankful that she spent the time putting that together.
Yeah, it's great.
And she also did a lot of research too on,
Tremendous resources and imagination. I mean, I don't mean that in a negative way, imagination, because I'm just not this is a lot of work.
yeah, it definitely is. Okay, so would someone like to make the motion? And I could, basically, we want to recommend to the full commission, and then we had the two edits, and then the third edit we just discussed.
That we accept it with the edits and recommend it to the commission.
Sounds good.
A second.
Seconded by Commissioner Levolsi. Okay, so let's open it up, this item, to public comment. We are on agenda item number, is it number 5?
Number 5, yes.
The Racial Equity Progress Report. We see one person with their hand raised. I'm unmuting you. This is Mr. Turner. You have 3 minutes.
Commissioners, I just wanted to say on behalf of the public, thanks for any and all attention to racial equity issues. We recognize that your purpose over the last 15 years in attempting to move the voting systems toward a protectable style and software is based in attempting to make sure that there is racial equity generally in elections. And thank you for your action tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Turner. And there are no other people with their hands raised. Okay, so is there any other discussion before we take a vote on the motion? Okay. Roll call then, Commissioner Hayden Crowley,
Yes.
Commissioner Levolsi,
Yes.
and I, Chair Jordanek, vote yes. So the motion passes unanimously. Okay, is there anything else on this item before we, so then you'll get the text for the two sentences to me? Okay,
By Friday afternoon.
great. Thank you, Commissioner Levolsi. Okay, anything else? Okay, so then let's move on to the next item, agenda item number 6. Process to conduct future annual performance evaluations of the Director of Elections. Discussion and possible action regarding the process to conduct future annual performance evaluations. It's just the same language repeated. So this refers to after the one that is currently in progress. Okay, so there were 3 packet documents for this. There was first the guidelines that the commission adopted back in March 2016. Then there's the current template that we are using this year. And then and I'll say more about these 2 documents in a second, and there's also a document that I pulled up from the commission meetings in 2018, where we must have discussed, like, for 10 meetings, what process we wanted to use. And this particular document came up in the packet, I think, 4 times. And if you look at the comments in the margin, you could see that they were sort of struggling with how do we like measure some of these goals that the commission was discussing at the time. So for this item, obviously we have quite a bit of time before the next evaluation, but I thought we could start brainstorming now. I know Commissioner Levolsi, you've had some suggestions at past meetings, and Commissioner Hayden Crowley, I know you had something you just mentioned earlier. But yeah, who would like to kind of start off with the discussion?
Well, I did want to bring up Commissioner Hayden Crowley's point about having the review in July. I really think that's a great idea. And then, the clear language about, I think we would have to check with city attorney, but have the clear language that this review is not an automatic renewal, and that we could open up the process.
Well, we can't open the process for 5 years. We're just talking about the review itself.
Just the review itself. Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
yeah.
Sorry.
So we're just talking about the way we review it.
Review.
But I do think that we should
I think it's
shift,
July.
we need to move it to July. June 30th is the end of the fiscal year, so it's a natural time to do the review. And it also is before the election, but we typically will have had one behind us. And it's just not as, I think we need to be very thoughtful about it and have some steps in place, which we can't possibly consider all tonight. But there should be, in order to do something, not just say we're going to do a review in July. I really feel like you got to know what you're going to do each week to move it forward. Like a checklist to move it forward, because things just don't move forward. It drives me crazy. And I, so to say we're going to review, oh, okay, here, pass this out, we need to have, there needs to be things in place in maybe May and June so that we actually do this in July.
So pre-steps.
Yeah.
So if we know the date is July, then perhaps there could be pre-steps in our even April, May meetings, and then perhaps give people, because we have lives outside of our wonderful commission work, to perhaps have June be that time where you actually, you have the pre-steps.
We're doing it right now.
And then June is that time where you actually make sure that you get your stuff in for the July review.
At this rate, we will have reviewed John in July.
Right.
Because we haven't finished the review.
Right. But to your point, if we have the pre-steps and we're all on board with what those pre-steps are. We start as early as April,
Yes.
saying we have a review coming up. It is scheduled for July. All
This is what-
commissioners need to get these, I'm just saying whatever those things are in process so that we can hit the ground running. as well.
Yes, yes,
I think that's an excellent
absolutely.
idea.
Absolutely. So this particular process we're going through right now with John, we've had now 2 meetings where we've discussed him, and we're going to have a third. Are we, it's on the agenda, I assume. Are we even going to get through it in April? Do you think?
I'm not sure. I mean,
Okay,
Well, I think a suggestion that we should think about is, are we allowed to have a meeting that's solely dedicated to one thing? Because perhaps that's the problem, is our agendas are too packed. And
Yeah.
if we know, as you said, that we are going to have these pre-steps that get us there, then perhaps our June meeting, the meeting before,
mhm.
is dedicated to that, so that and maybe we have a limited agenda.
I think it's a really, really good idea. I really do, because as we get into the summer months, I hope it's a little less frenzied, so to speak.
It is, I mean, I can speak for myself
Yeah.
as a DIB director at an independent school.
Yeah.
My summers are fabulous.
Oh.
I can get some work done.
But I think that's what we need to do.
Right, and then if we have the date, we have it set, June is set, then for those of us like myself and many other people who travel
Yeah,
during June and July,
Uh-huh.
You know the dates,
yeah,
so you can schedule your vacations around.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, oh,
So,
yeah.
I mean, just being practical as human beings,
yeah,
people like to get away.
yeah, oh, yeah. Are you kidding?
So
Yeah.
if we have that set, and then, because I do think our agendas are overly ambitious.
Too much.
And we need to, that is extremely important if we're thinking about how we look as a commission.
It's the most important thing we do.
How, exactly, if we want to not make mistakes of the past, that's a place where it's in our discretion. Let's just have that June meeting be dedicated to that. And if we have to go into closed session, we go into closed session. If we have to go back into open, you know what I mean? I think we just need to dedicate that June meeting to that process.
Yeah.
And we're doing that, we're focused, and then we can come out of it in a much better place.
I love that idea. I love it. Love it, love it.
And I also liked the idea that you said earlier, going into that meeting, having all the information.
Yes.
So
Yes, yes, right.
preparing and the pre-planning.
The pre-planning.
I'm a pre-planner.
I mean, if you want to do something right, you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I function.
Yeah,
I hate last minute.
yeah. What's the saying? Haste makes waste.
Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of the pre-planning, like you had mentioned at a meeting, the idea of having like anonymous surveys or something like that, so to get feedback from
From the
employees.
community, yeah.
Or-
I
or-
mean, not the community, but from, I mean, where I currently am employed as a director of DIB and being on the leadership team at the school, all employees are able, as well as for our head of school, to give an anonymous review of, and I think it's very beneficial for people to have that anonymous opportunity, and for the director to have the feedback. Feedback is essential, to, what's the morale, what are, all those
Yeah.
kinds of things in the
Yeah.
office, because if people can anonymously review the director, then there is as long as there's no legal or civil servant,
There may be some rules around this.
we would need to check legally
Yeah.
and what the rules are,
We
but
need
I
to work with
think,
DHR.
that kind of feedback is, I mean, I definitely benefit from it
Mhm.
Yeah.
in my current position. And that's where, organizations are going for the most part. And I think it was Commissioner Parker who brought up like a
She would
360.
be good to
I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
to work on this process. I can contact DHR too and see what that, but she would be good to,
Yeah, I mean, I think as part of the brainstorming we're doing today, we could maybe have some, what's the word? Like, not tasks, but just research topics that people could do. But yeah, it is a research topic. Like, what are what are we allowed to do in terms of the surveys?
To find out what
Yeah.
are the legal.
because
Limits.
there's also, John
And
is a
civil
member,
service.
the Director of Elections is a member of the Municipal Executives Association. And that is a union.
Right, but he's appointed, so he's not a civil servant.
He is a civil servant.
He is a civil servant.
Everybody here is a civil servant.
Okay, I didn't realize that. I thought he was.
Yeah.
Huh.
There's civil service protections even with appointments.
With appointment, okay.
Yeah,
got it.
and
That's what
also
I-
with the MEA.
Okay,
So there's rules around that and there's rules at DHR.
yeah, of course.
And
So he
I
wouldn't check.
mean, I can certainly check into that. I've
Okay.
got relationships in both places
Okay.
Okay.
as a
And that
former,
way we know.
as a former MEA member.
Excellent.
I wish
So-
I were still.
I know another thing, well, you just mentioned it, was the idea of having smart evaluation, like
Mhm.
this, like what steps do we need to have in place to allow us to do that during our process? Like setting goals, for example, measurable things and,
Right, that. Yeah. Sorry, I just had I lost my thought. Sorry.
Well, Chris, let me just think aloud here. We have to finish the process that we have. And nothing's going to change that.
Right.
We're not going to start anything new. So
Right.
this is for next year.
yes,
And we would be starting at the latest April. But we may even back it up to March,
yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
you know, because we have to decide what those steps are going to look like. So we are giving ourselves enough time between now and March to come up with a new process. And we're designating June as the time that
The
we,
time that we solely dedicate.
yes,
To
Yeah.
the review.
With the idea of being done in July.
But
basically.
done in July,
Mhm.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, so I think in terms, but if to do, what is it, what's the phrase for it? You call it,
360, I think.
oh,
360. It's
360. Yeah, like, is there anything that,
360.
oh, I was confusing with the SMART and the racial equity report. Like, does that mean that we have to have certain things in place at the beginning of the year to do that at the end of the year? Like, we need to have, like, written
Well,
down what the,
it doesn't require a budget to do this. So,
Well,
I-
it may, because 360, for example, where I work with, that process is a survey. And that data is kept. Many organizations use Culture Amp, which is not cheap.
okay, well,
but
we
they-
don't have money for it.
We don't have money for it, so that's where we would ask, is there something that DHR already has in process? Is
Yeah.
there a tool that they already have?
I'll
that
ask.
Could be used.
I'll ask. I will write down culture. App. I'll ask.
Yeah, it's expensive.
I
It's random.
think that I'm just gonna say right now, the budget deficit was 720 million and it's growing.
Yeah, I know.
And so I think,
And
it
that's,
doesn't mean though that we can't do some, you know,
that's why I'm saying there may already be a tool that DHR has that we could use for this process.
yeah. And-
So we don't have to
yeah.
bring in, I just think of Culture App because it's a lot of organizations use it. It's a great, they're very secure with their data and all that, but it's a private entity that has a cost.
Yeah.
So it's just an example of what we can, I mean, we use SurveyMonkey for our head of school process. For the 360 review. So every employee is required to evaluate our head of school using that tool.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And it's totally anonymous.
Yeah. Interesting. It's interesting.
I mean, feedback, I think, is essential.
Yeah. That's a very interesting concept.
Um,
I'll look into it. Yeah, I'll just see. Well, Chris, what I'll do is, I think what we can do today is we can agree on a new timeline that we're
Mhm.
recommending to the commission, that we're investigating it. And then I'm more than happy to look into, what we can and can't do. I think we have to work with DHR and with,
Absolutely.
talk to the city attorney, and also MEA.
Mhm.
Because we don't want to create any kind of a
Oh,
what's
absolutely not.
what's NEA?
municipal executive association.
Okay.
It's a union.
And but in terms of, you know, what all that, I mean, I didn't really look carefully at the forms that you had printed out. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't.
Mhm.
Because I knew I'd filled out one already, and I thought, no, this is good.
Yeah.
Good enough. So what we're doing now is we're using this one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I think this is where we're starting with, where we're gonna go is a whole other different story.
Right.
Right.
So I guess, and I don't think this is anything that we can address today. Oh, I don't want to take this one. But what's good and what's bad about this?
Well, we
Well-
would need to ask the entire commission. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, you know, I mean, I think if, you know, in terms of talking about this, we've agreed on the timeline, although we probably need to have a motion on that. But in terms of content, I don't think we can make a decision about any of that.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely start talking about it today. I mean, we have. But I mean, one of the things I can see is, I think one of the deficiencies in the current form is that some of the, like the areas on which we're evaluating the director, it's a little bit vague and maybe it's not really clear how to measure. You know, I think one of the things that, and this may be part of the 360 review, I'm not too familiar with the process, but like having goals that are more quantifiable, where you can actually be a little more objective about it.
Right.
So, and that's something that we'd want to start earlier rather than, because you don't want to be setting the goals at the end,
Right.
obviously.
That's too late.
One other thing, the last idea I had, I wanted to run this by you, but in terms of like the kind of information we want to have going into the process, like I think and this might have been mentioned before, but I think it'd be useful to have an idea about the employee turnover, like how many people, you know, leave each year and how many people come in each year.
Yes, and I think it would be important to specify
Yeah, you mentioned.
the number of people who are civil servant, who are not civil servant,
Right.
and who are temporary, because the department hires a large number of temporary contract employees who only work for a specified period of time. And so what does that look like? Are those people constantly new people? Are those people who return? What, you know, what is their experience like? I think that'll be, so it sounds simple, but I think it's more complex, given that the department hires so many temporary employees. And I think it would also be important to look at the demographics as well, because are we hiring certain people just for temporary? Who are the civil, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who are those who are more
Does he put
permanent
up
employees?
the demographics? Wasn't John put that up?
I can't remember. He might.
I'm sure it's in, I mean,
Okay,
Yeah.
it may
Yeah.
be there, but I think
I was interested, just at least as a start, the non-temp, which I think there's maybe,
there aren't that many.
20 or something, or
Yeah.
what? Yeah.
Yes, I think we start with the non-temp, but I think it's also important to look at, because it's such
Yeah.
a large number.
Yeah.
That actually come in and work in the department, not necessarily people who, I mean, we need to think about that, but I think it's a very different situation when people are, whether inspectors or poll workers. That's
Mhm.
also, because that's
another trend.
really, these are not people who come into the office.
It's a one-day thing.
And it's a one-day thing, exactly, as opposed to people who are contracted for a specified period of time.
Yeah. So that's kind of a question like, how do we get that information?
And
You know,
do we have access?
Or
to
do we
that
have access to the
And
information?
are we allowed to have access to that information? We need to find out as well.
Or,
I mean, I
and
guess
is
we
it,
should, but we need to find out.
and is it public information or
Is
only?
it public or not?
Yeah.
Everything's public information, everything.
Oh, is there?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the state secrets that are out there on the internet right now about Ukraine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is this something that you could lump in with your other research, or is that,
I
you think?
think a little of it. I'm going to be honest, I can't do a lot of this. I
Yeah.
have a full-time job right now and I'm on another board. So I can check into DHR and MEA. I can make a couple phone calls. I can't make this my life.
Right. Well, maybe just get a starting point
I
and
can
hand it
start-
off to,
I can start.
yeah.
I can make a couple phone calls.
Okay. So that was a good, healthy brainstorming session.
Mhm.
Did we want to do a motion about the timeline?
Yeah,
to
I think so.
recommend?
I think we moved to change the review process to a pre-planning that could begin as early as March, but leading up to a meeting that is devoted to reviewing the director in June of each year. That we recommend this to the full commission with the final assessment being delivered in July.
I second.
Okay, great. So, well stated. Yeah, so let's open this, before we do the vote, let's take public comment on this item. We have one hand raised. So this is, Mr. Turner, I'm unmuting you, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you again, commissioners. The public supports the motion, but also want to comment that reviews should include the ability to analyze lack of forthrightness on the director's part. I don't know if that's part of the analysis. Lack of forthrightness, insubordination, as far as the supervisors told him to move toward open source, and I think in his relationship with the Secretary of State's staff, there was some intentional misinformation imparted regarding voting works. His closeness to the vendor with the emails that are available showing sort of a friendship relationship with golf and beer and that kind of thing, cronyism. That would be good for points off, I think, and should be recognized. There should be, I think, autonomy also for the commission. We saw the onslaught of politics and pressure coming from Aaron Peskin and others. The last time racial equity was mentioned, and a thought to open up the process for review. We had Tucker Carlson coming in to align with Aaron Peskin to basically protect the Director Arntz. So it's already been so bizarre that I hope that you really tread carefully and recognize these people are playing heavy duty chess with the vendors and such. They don't want open source software voting moving forward in San Francisco. And I think that should be recognized. So as you move forward, I'm applauding you and wishing you the best, but I just want you to tread with that knowledge that these folks are, they mean business, and it's all about business. So I appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Turner. Okay, I see no other hands raised. Okay, so we've got some research you're going to be doing, and then Yeah, a little bit of research.
Gotta manage expectations.
Did we want to somehow recruit Commissioner Parker to do some of this? I don't know how we could go about that, but she seemed to have an interest as well. But what do you think?
Let's see where I get.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
let's
Right.
see what you get first
And
before
then
we,
see where we can go.
Okay,
because we
sounds,
have time.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
I just think you do.
Okay.
Well, if we start the process, I think we will have enough time.
Yeah, I think so.
But I think it's, in my opinion, it's too early to get her on board.
Yeah, right now, yeah.
Yeah.
I need to make a couple phone.
Okay. All right, well, good. So let's move on to the next item. This is,
Did you vote?
Oh,
Oh,
we need to vote.
oh yeah, good
That's
point.
okay, thank you.
Thank you for reminding me. All right, so we have the motion, take the roll call. Commissioner Hayden Crowley,
Yes.
Commissioner Volsi,
Yes.
and I, Chair Dodonic, vote yes. So the motion passes unanimously. Okay, great. So now we can move on to the next item. So this is agenda item number 7, agenda items for future meetings. Okay. So here, I just wanted to call your attention to another document from President Stone, which is that summary email. And she mentioned a couple other topics that we could be discussing this year.
Well, can I just say that I
Yeah.
think we need to keep, let's look at the current agenda. So let's go through the 3 things we talked about tonight. I think what was the first thing? The website.
Website.
Do we need to
website.
come back to that at all at the next meeting?
For BOPEC or the full commission? Maybe. I think so.
We do.
I think so.
Okay.
If I'm understanding you, you want us to make sure before we add any items
Mhm.
to this agenda that we
Well, do we tie
make
things up?
sure that we tie the things we discussed up today for the next BOPEC
Well,
meeting.
right, and
Okay.
the other piece of that is when I create an agenda and you always do it based on the previous agenda.
Mhm.
So I think if we have some outstanding items on the website, that needs to be addressed. I don't think they're gonna be big. I don't think
No.
they're gonna take a lot of time.
No, but it's a good point.
The second one was the racial equity plan, but I think that is resolved because we move, assuming the commission signs off on it.
Right, I'll
But-
get the language to Chris on
but-
Friday.
But then there's the implementation of the actual,
Right.
the execution of it.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
but I think that's more of a, that's a commission. Where's that, I mean, that has to be done at the commission
Should we-
level.
Well, it doesn't have to be. I mean,
Well, we can't be implementing racial equity goals as 3 people. I think the whole commission.
Yeah,
has to
we
be part of
want to
it.
hear from the whole commission.
They have to, I mean, I think I think assuming that they agree to all of the goals, then it's the commission and the president that decides how we're going forward with those goals.
But is that how committees work? Subcommittees?
would
mean, I
think so,
thought-
Refer it up to the committee.
But I thought well, we need to find this out. We'll have to ask the city attorney, because I thought we, as a committee, can make certain decisions within the purview of this committee.
Well, I think we just did, and we're asking them to approve.
Oh, I see. Got it.
Yeah.
And then once they
Got it.
approve it,
Okay. Then
then,
we've got to implement it.
then how is it implemented? Is
Okay.
that, and that's up to the president to refer it back to us.
yeah, I mean, they could kick it back to us. That's kind of what I was getting at. They might,
Okay, got it. Okay.
like, for example, if we have a process for contacting the appointing authorities, she might say, why don't you draft something together to bring back? And then-
Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Got
and
it.
then the third thing is the department head review, and there'll be an update on that and probably a plan as to how we move forward with it. So,
I think we should stick to those items in our next meeting. I don't think we should add to our agenda. We were just talking about overambitious agendas.
I don't
Yeah.
know what Chris has things.
Oh, of course you do. Sorry.
But I'm just gonna say one thing, let me just add this. This is a commission that is overly ambitious. And I think the problem is that, I'm just gonna tell you, I'm just glad when you get 3 things done every year.
Yeah.
And if you get 3 things done, you've done a good job. And you've got redistricting out there, and I know Chris probably wants to talk about open source voting. And so I know we need to make time for that.
Right.
I don't think we need to take on other initiatives.
I think I do agree with you that we're 3 people. I work full-time. You work
I'm-
full-time,
yeah.
You work as well. And I think we should be responsible about what we take on.
Yeah,
And
no,
this is the first time that in this constellation we're meeting. So I would like to see us not add any new items to the agenda, and that our next meeting that we close out these things that we discussed.
Now, I will say, we meet quarterly, not every month.
I know,
Yeah.
I know, but that gives us enough time to get it done within the work that we're already doing
Yeah.
on the commission. So I understand that we don't meet every month, but that gives us enough
All
time.
right. I'm going to give a little deference here to Chris and open source voting because I know it's very important to him and it's probably something you want to add to the agenda.
well, it was not something I was going to mention today, but I mean, obviously, it would be great if we could discuss it. Just because it's been a while,
Mhm.
but not necessarily for the committee. But really all I wanted to do on this item was just because she took the time to put the document together, just like name some of the things she mentioned
Yeah.
that we didn't discuss today, and maybe it can be 2 or 3 meetings from now.
Okay.
But so, and this is the email.
Is this the 1/3/1/2023?
Yeah, it's called, and then inside it says BOPEC goals, focus areas.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, one of them is, racial equity. This is a topic she has mentioned in the email, towards the beginning. But the other ones are competitive selection process, which we're doing. No, we're not doing that. We didn't address that one. So she has 4 things on the last page. Number 1 is competitive selection process for the director of elections. Number 2 is evaluation process for the director of elections and commission secretary. We kind of started half of that. Process for evaluating the Department of Elections budget. And then she says anything else. So
We
there,
don't believe anything else is relevant or
yeah,
necessary.
right. So there's like a couple other ideas of things we could potentially discuss, but I agree with you. This is a big stuff.
This is a lot.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And so I just think we need to be realistic.
Yeah.
And then I'm also thinking about the fact that I'm doing some work on redistricting. So
And that's a lot.
that's a lot.
Yeah.
Commissioner Dye at the moment is doing a lot of the heavy lifting because of my full-time job, but there's going to be a lot coming up. So I think we should kind of recognize what the president would like and also recognize our limitations.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And we can also prioritize the things that are more.
Right. And we have time to kind of shift depending on what we get from what
So whatever I find out,
you can email us.
I can email you, but you
Right.
can't respond to me.
Right.
I'll hold myself back.
Yeah, it'll be information. Can we say thank you?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I know you.
That's
I'll-
gonna be hard. I'm
I'll-
gonna really have to check myself.
I'll know you're thinking it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So that sounds good. So let's take public comment on this item.
Okay.
I don't see anyone,
Oh,
their hands raised. Okay, anything else? Otherwise, this will adjourn the meeting. The time is now 8:20 p.m.
My goodness.
And have a wonderful rest of the evening, everybody.